Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. As I say, every episode, thank you guys so much for joining us wherever in the world you are listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on. Thank you guys for all the support, the kind messages, the emails, all the things that you sent my way, the show's way. Keep those coming. Truly appreciate those and love getting in contact with you guys as listeners. I know that it's so important in this game, especially the way that it's going right now, to make sure that you can get easy points, to get offense, to get points up on the board, to get those quick buckets in. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about the idea of developing quick offense and how to get those quick buckets, whether it's in transition, things that you can maybe do in your practice or your training to work on your guys getting good decisions and good reads. Talk a little bit about quick hitters. Talk about even your guys one-on-one making, good decisions and being able to make a move off the dribble so they can get themselves their own buckets. So if you're somebody who's into offense, if you're somebody who's into how to get a quick bucket and how to, design some things to get your guys ready to make those buckets, that's what we're getting into today. Of course, I don't do this alone. Very happy to be joined by head coach at Royal Crown Academy out in Toronto. Very happy to be joined by Coach Mike De Giorgio today. Coach, again, like I said, appreciate you being able to come on here and talk some hoop with us. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, man. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Coach, let's start with your basketball journey, your coaching journey. Let's start with you going over with us. Where's this great game of basketball taking you? Where's this coaching journey taking you? And how'd you end up at Royal Crown where you are right now?
For sure. Grew up playing basketball, played my whole life, played at the university level here in Canada. I was decent, but right after I was done, I had a really good relationship with my head coach at the University of Toronto. So he put me on as an assistant coach for 1 year while I was in teachers college. And then I was able to jump right into a full-time assistant gig right after that. I was there for 13 years as an assistant at the University of Toronto. I give a lot of credit to the coaches I had there, the head coaches I had there, because they let me do a lot. They let me run huge portions of practice. I did a lot of the scouting. I did a lot of the recruiting, helped with fundraising. So I was able to learn a lot during that time. And develop my confidence, develop a lot of, get a great wealth of knowledge from the coaches that I worked with. Once COVID hit, I made the move over to high school prep basketball here in Toronto. Ended up at Royal Crown. It was a relatively new program. We took it over just there in 2020. And then 2021 was our first year. We kind of hit the ground running. We had a really good team. We had, we had a really talented team. I think we had 9 Division I guys on that team from different classes. So I've been there now. This will be my 4th year. We have 2 OSBA championships, and we made the grind session Final Four last year, the first Canadian team to make the grind session Final Four. So just looking to build off that and work towards new goals as we head into this season.
I got to ask for somebody who's been in a program that's had so much success. What do you kind of attribute that to? How do you feel that, the program really took off and got to the level that it is right now? What kind of led to that happening, in your opinion?
I think it's all the work that we put in. We say all the time, nobody works as hard as us. We have a lot of time in the gym. We put in a lot of time in the gym. We got a great coaching staff with me. A lot of guys that put in a lot of time with the kids. And really help develop them year to year, when we get them to play the right way, we get them to play, a team brand of basketball. We defend at a high level, we rebound the ball, we push it, and we try to get as many easy baskets as possible. And I guess that's kind of leading us to where, this conversation that we're about to have about it.
So one of the things I like to always talk about, and you kind of talked about it with your answer there, is I love talking about things related to culture. And I know it's such a, catch-all term, and there's so many, different definitions people have of culture. But if you had to kind of describe what the culture is at Royal Crown Academy, how would you kind of describe that culture? What would it look like for somebody if they were to, walk in the gym or kind of talk to your guys in your program?
For sure. I think the main goal obviously is to win. But you don't win without doing the things that you need to do prior. So we kind of have like a little saying that we say is like work, develop, then win. So first thing first, like you got to put in the work. You have to be in the gym. You have to be getting your shots up. You have to be working hard. You have to be developing your own game, which then leads into the team aspect. And once, everybody buys in and plays as a team, and you're playing as five on offense and defending as five on defense, that's when you develop, that championship culture where you're winning games, but you're also working towards that main goal towards the end of the season, and just getting there and being ready to play when it comes time to win a championship is always, a blessing.
No, 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 fantastic. And I think that, with your situation too now, with the success that you've had, you can probably assess right away whether or not guys are going to be a good fit for your program. You could probably look at a guy or talk to a guy or work with a guy and maybe make that decision about, hey, your work ethic is exactly what we're looking for. You have the right mentality for it. Or like, hey, where you're at right now, whether it's mentally, physically, or whatever the case may be, like you're not ready for, where it is that we're trying to be and where it is that we're at right now. So I'm sure you can be, really selective and really look at a guy and be able to kind of make that assessment.
Definitely. I mean, we're super lucky. We always say nobody's above the team. We have a
Hmm.
deep team every year. So if, the one thing we're going to hold guys accountable if they're messing up off the court, whether it be school, whether it be, their home life, whether it be what they're doing at the residence, whatever, like they won't play. And what ends up happening is they won't play and it's the next guy up mentality. And we got somebody pretty good coming off the bench that's going to fill their spot, and then they're sitting there looking down at me like, oh, they're going to win, and I'm not playing. Like they fall in line pretty quickly. So it's a really good motivation tool. Having past success gives the coaching staff a little bit of respect and clout that we can use every now and then. Like we know what it takes. And we've had a couple mainstays on the team that have really helped us provide the player-led culture where they know what it takes, and they're championship level players, and they're the ones, policing the locker room when the coaches aren't there.
Yeah, no, I mean, to know that when you leave the gym, that your guys are holding each other accountable. I'm sure in some ways that takes a lot of pressure off the coaching staff or puts them a little bit at ease, knowing that your guys are going to be the ones holding each other accountable, and you don't always have to be the one kind of enforcing everything, and because that can get exhausting. That can definitely take a lot of time out of your day to always be enforcing something like that.
For sure.
So, Coach, we're talking about offense. Let's start with what a lot of listeners I'm sure are kind of thinking about, which is getting out in transition and being able to get buckets on offense in a transition situation. So, kind of talk us through what are your transition principles and how do you get a good offensive opportunity out of transition?
For sure. So we teach two different styles.
Okay.
And it all like one of the triggers is who inbounds the ball. So if the five, I don't tell any one guy that needs like I don't, you know, put anybody in a box and say you're the inbounder every time. It's whoever's closest, really and truly. If the five can get out ahead of the pack, then we run first big with four out. So we fill both corners, we have both slots, and then obviously first big's at the rim, and then we push him to the opposite side of the ball. If the five ends up inbounding the ball, or he's the one who gets the rebound and outlets, and he's trailing the play, um, I like to play really free. So we'll just set a quick drag, and we'll just run spread ball screen and kind of play off of that. Our default is drive, kick, swing. So, when we drive, we're looking for paint touches. We get a kick out, we're really relocating pretty quickly. We look for the kick and then a swing and then a re-attack. Unless you're wide open, then you shoot the ball. I don't put many rules in just because I want them to play free. I want them to use, some of their own creativity, play off of instinct a little bit. The two things that we do stress a lot are spacing, like corners have to be filled.
Mm,
And then I really like telling the ball handler to cut the court. So if you catch it on the right side, as you're attacking, you should be attacking through the center circle and attacking the left side of the court, just kind of flipping the strong side of the court and making the defense, communicate and get to different spots rather than just letting them load up onto one side of the court.
So when it comes to kind of running through the progressions and kind of teaching your guys about what to be looking for and how to make sure that they're making these decisions correctly on transition, talk us through what you're kind of either training or simulating or practicing with your guys so that they're able to, make these decisions when a game situation happens.
For sure. So, like drive kick swing is something that we introduced on day one.
Okay.
It's probably the first thing, because it provides a basis for when things break down, you know what you're doing. It teaches spacing, it teaches the one more concept, it teaches the ability to get to paint touches. So that's the first thing that we're putting in. And then when we do go full court, we build it up. So like we'll go 4 trips, 5-on-0, we'll go first big one way, then we'll go cut the court 3 on the other side. Then we'll go down the other way. We'll go drive kick swing one round, and then we'll go drive kick swing 2 rounds, where they have to continue the drive kick swing where they're getting
Mm,
multiple paint touches in one possession. Um, so everything we do, we're just trying to build. We're trying to build from the easiest thing towards something that's going to be a little bit more complex. And that's something that we'll rep. If we practice 5 times a week, we're probably repping that 3 times at minimum, just so that the spacing concept of filling the corners and getting the ball up the court, all those things are really hit home, every single time that we're on the court.
and when you're doing that, you're kind of going through that. You said that's something that you emphasize day one. What are some of the struggles that you see with that? Where are guys kind of making mistakes where those corrections lie in? Because I'm sure that for some listening they might be thinking like, all right, this sounds great, but there's maybe ways here and there, things that are happening where maybe guys are making mistakes or not filling correctly or not making right reads. So when you're kind of working through this, what are some of the bumps and bruises kind of along the way that you're kind of smoothing out and correcting?
For sure. A lot of times it's guys who've never played the perimeter,
Okay.
that end up in a perimeter spot. So just, hammering home corners. Early on in the season, I'll put assistants in the corner, and the guys who are running in transition got to run down and they got to, slap hands with the coach in the corner,
Oh,
just
nice. Yeah.
just so they get deep,
I
the
get there. Yeah.
deepest corner as possible. Few other things, just sort of the idea of relocation, going to the right side, being in the right place. I often don't stop the drill. I'll let them play because I want them to be able to play through mistakes. Because in a game, there's nobody going to stop the game. Be like, hey guys, you're not spaced well. Let's reset. Like I
Yeah.
want
Yeah. Yeah.
them to be able to understand what to do when things aren't as planned. But it's definitely something that reiterate after the drill. It's like, okay, this happened. There was 3 on that side instead of just 2. Like, what do we do when that happens? And you kind of give them some solutions to the problems that persist, and then hopefully they'll be able to pick that up. And then once games start and you have film, it's just hammering home like when you do it right, this is what it looks like. When you do it wrong, this is what it looks like. And just trying to equate that to the actual success of the possession. And just trying to build
Mm.
sustainable habits that'll, help us win games, not just tomorrow, but like in March.
Yeah, so to your point though, and I'm glad that you mentioned this up. It seems that just based on what you said, that film is something important. Your guys are looking at film. Your guys are looking at situations, and they're able to learn from it. So film is something I imagine that's pretty important to your program.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll try to watch film once or twice a week for sure.
Okay.
It may be practice mostly from games because I like, practice film inherently. If your offense is doing something good, your defense is probably not doing something good. So I like to be able to watch against others more often than just watching against ourselves. Obviously, you can emphasize certain things in practice. So if there is something that needs work, we'll watch some practice film. But mostly I like it when we're playing against other teams and we can really hammer home our principles and keep things simple.
Yeah.
Um, I don't go crazy with the film sessions. Like I'm talking half an hour, absolute max half an hour, and clip it as much as possible. But yeah, that is a mainstay of our program.
And when it comes to transition principles, what do you kind of either explain to your guys or talk to your guys so that they're able to understand when a transition look is there and when an opportunity is there versus not forcing something and being able to pull it back up and set something up? Is that something that players just kind of have to learn through playing, or there's certain things that they should be looking for as indicators of whether or not this is a good opportunity to look out in transition versus don't force something, just pull it back and set something up?
Yeah, I want to play fast as much as possible. So
Hmm.
giving them that freedom to take shots. I we talk about a lot about the hierarchy of shots, like what shots are good and what
Okay.
shots, we're not really looking for, especially in transition because it isn't coming out of a set. So I tell people all the time, they have the freedom to shoot the ball, especially when it comes off of like a paint touch kick out. Like a paint touch kick shot, if you're open, shoot it. And often in practice, just yell turnover when guys turn down shots so they understand that like I want them to shoot the ball. Um, because oftentimes that might be the best look you get in a set. We talk a lot about getting all the way to the rim in transition. So, those are the two main things are rim attempts get fouled or kick out threes. And then if you don't have it, knowing to be able to pull that and then get into sort of some of our quick hitters.
Yeah, I know. I love that the thing that you said there about don't pass up open shots, and I think that that gives probably a lot of you know one, probably confidence to your guys that you're confident in them shooting because they put the work in to get those shots up, but two, like how important it is for them to get in position, get in the corner, get into space to get those shots up, because I tell my girls too, even sometimes when they pass up shots, that you not shooting that shot is selfish because you're missing out on an opportunity that everybody on the team is looking for you to take. So, I'm sure for your guys, they feel probably just that much more confident. I hope, knowing that, hey, not only do I think that I can make it, but I also know that like the ball's going to come to me and coach is expecting me to to put this up if I get open.
For sure. And a lot of times on film, I'll show them missed shots because
Mm,
like good missed shots, so kick out threes often lead to O boards because the entire team knows you're going to shoot it, right? So like the
right,
guys who are supposed to crash are crashing where the defense is not set. They're just coming off of guarding a penetration, and now they're not really set to box out, and you're already attacking the glass as the shot is getting as the guy's shooting the shot. So it gives you an advantage even if you do miss the ball, and if you're a good rebounding team like we are, sometimes you just play dump and chase at that point too. Like
uh-huh,
you get it up on the glass, you get it up on the rim, and now you let your athletes and big guys go get it, and now you're getting something closer to the rim. Um, Whereas, if you turn down the shot and you re-attack, now the spacing isn't great. You might turn over the ball, and now the other team's going down, down the court on a 2-on-1, 3-on-1, and you give up points because you don't shoot the ball,
right,
right?
right.
That's a huge thing for us is that when you're open, you have to shoot it.
Yeah, no, I think that's the point that also you mentioned was really salient, really important too, about like, even if the shot doesn't go in, like the opportunities you can get out of that, whether it's a putback or whether it's trusting your guys to go get it, because there's so much, running around in transition, that guy closing out on the shooter, all of a sudden you put that shot up, you got a guy at the rim, you might still get an opportunity there anyway. And so everything can just sort of open up just from that guy being ready and willing to be able to shoot.
For sure.
Coach, I wanted to ask you next up about just the process of training players to make quick decisions, right? A lot of coaches have a lot of great, physically gifted athletes, but to have, physical gifts and physical quickness is one thing, but to have the mental side of the game to be able to make those quick decisions, be able to see things and be able to react quickly or act quickly based on what they're seeing is a whole nother skill set entirely. So I was curious about what is it that you do to kind of help your guys, you know, be decisive, make good reads, make those quick decisions. What kind of goes into that for you?
We talk a lot about point five decisions. Um, so just, you catch the ball, you either shoot it right away, you pass it right away, or you reattack right away. And that's something that comes over time, especially when you're reiterating that every practice, every game, like point five decision. It kind of hammers home pretty quickly with the guys. When it comes to drills in practice, um, I like doing quick transition drills, 3-on-2 with a trailer, 2-on-1, that type of stuff where they have to make quick decisions where it's not like it's fast break. type style. And then when we do play half court, I love 5-on-5 in the half court, just like giving them a set, or giving them a framework and allowing them to play out of their own instinct, and fostering that. And when it doesn't happen, when a guy holds the ball too much, I'll stop it and be like, you can't back out the ball for 3 dribbles, like, or you put in a rule where it's 2 dribbles max, because at 2 dribbles nobody can sort of stand there and stop the ball a lot, right? So it's like you put in
Yeah.
rules to emphasize really what you want, but a lot of the times I try to let them be creative and let them play off of their own instinct. And just when something really good happens, make sure you tell them. And when something bad happens, you can say that's okay, but this is, a better decision, or this is a better choice, or, whatever it takes. I think giving them the confidence to be able to do multiple things is almost more important than them doing the right thing at all times.
So with that, and I think that's really cool, letting your guys have the opportunity, letting your guys, figure things out, like you kind of mentioned, is super important. So as a coach, when you're, whether it's in the, like they said, like the kind of the half court situation, or whether it's a 3-on-2 situation, for you, how do you kind of decide when you want to kind of stop something and use it kind of as a teaching moment versus kind of letting the players kind of figure it out for themselves? You're giving them the space and the opportunity to discuss things among themselves and kind of reflect and kind of correct something. How do you kind of balance when it's time for you to say something versus like, no, I'm going to let my guys kind of work?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes with just having a feel of how the practice is going. If the practice is going really well, I won't stop drills. I'll just let them, run through it. And then when it's time to debrief at the end of a possession, or at the end of a switch, a transition, whatever, we can talk quickly about what happened. If it's starting to go off the rails, like, I'll stop it in the middle of the thing and just, okay, we need to reset. This is what it's looking like. This is what it needs to be. Do better, restart, do it again. If it's something that we just talked about, and somebody makes the exact same mistake, maybe I got to teach it better. Maybe I got to coach it better, so I got to say it in a different way so that everybody understands. Um, a lot of that I think comes with experience, but also just having, trust in your players, that sometimes they're going to have to learn how to play through adversity, because you only got 5 timeouts in a game. Like, you don't have enough time to stop every single time something goes bad. So they got to be able to work through it. At the same time, you don't want to let practice go crazy, and, you don't get anything done over the hour, hour and a half, whatever you have on the court. You don't want to let it get crazy. So you got to say your piece at some point too.
Oh, excuse me. And to the point of what it is that you mentioned about that, when your players are figuring things out, when your players are making decisions about things, and they're kind of going through the process, and you're just kind of staying back and letting them kind of figure it out. What have you kind of gained from that? What have you kind of seen your guys do or learn? What sort of things do you kind of pick up on by just listening to your guys talk? How have you kind of learned from your players, or learned what your players are thinking based on that?
Yeah, it gives you a different perspective, because they're obviously the ones playing, right? So
Yeah.
they're on the court, they see things differently because they're in it. If they think, I might think the angle on a certain pass, or this set is working, or whatever is good from the sidelines, but they're on the court being like, coach, I can't make that pass because of XYZ. So, hearing what they have to say is super important to me, because they're the ones actually in it. And a lot of times I'll ask them what they want to run, because they're the ones who are feeling the game. They have a feel for the game, and they're the ones who have to execute the play. So if they're bought in and they're motivated to do what they want, and I give them a lot of freedom that way, like, they're more likely to give me their best at that moment. So just hearing their perspective. Um, Also, as a former player, I loved when I had a little bit of freedom, where I didn't have to look to the coach. Kind of slowed you down sometimes, like, if you know that the coach is going to trust what you have to do, you can play at a faster pace. You can make quicker decisions, because you're never overthinking anything. You're just kind of playing free and living off your instinct.
Yeah, and there's something to be said, I'm sure, for, the flow of a practice. And I'm sure a lot of us, whether it's as players or maybe even as coaches, sometimes have done the whole, keep blowing the whistle, and practice never really gets into that groove or gets to that momentum because the coach is always stopping things and talking, and you feel like you've didn't really accomplish much or get as much as you wanted done because nothing really got to develop because everything was getting like stopped after like 2 or 3 minutes, and it probably makes your guys frustrated, coaches get frustrated, and I've been through some of those messy practices, and I don't think anybody feels good at the end of those.
No, yeah, and I've worked with coaches who have told me literally never stop a drill because they wanted people to be able to figure it out. And I've worked with coaches who, probably
Um,
overstop drills. And to each their own, when it's your team, when you're the head coach and you're the one making the decisions, you get to coach in your style and you get to coach the way that you want to coach. Not saying there's a right or a wrong, but just sort of what works best for you and how to impose your own will sort of on practice.
Definitely, definitely. No, and I agree. Definitely know what works for you and stick to it and whatever that coaching philosophy may be. Um, Big thing about offense coach courses is having like a quick hitter, something that you can go right into that you think is gonna get you that quick bucket, whether it's a set play on a baseline out of bounds, sideline out of bounds play, or even, setting something up out in the half court. So, just curious about what general actions do you like to work in? Do you think are best for you and your guys when it comes to needing a set play that's gonna get you a good look and a quick bucket?
Yeah, so I have two different sort of philosophies. So I have my transition flow stuff where it's like off a miss, we're pushing in transition, we don't have numbers. What can we get into quickly that we know that we're going to be able to get to quick? Like simple entries, simple looks, so I'll have sort of usually four different actions, a wing entry, a wing push through, a trail entry, and a trail push through. That's four quick actions that are easy to recognize. It differs year by year, usually. One mainstay is the European continuity ball screen set, just where the point guard pushes the wing through. I've actually made a change this year. So this year I've changed from pushing the guy through to the corner to clearing him up to the top. So he becomes the reversal guy. Um, that's one change that I made this year. But oftentimes, on a wing entry, on a pass wing entry, you're either screening for a post or you're cutting all the way through and getting the ball back as the point guard on the second side of the court. And then the things we run through the trail are often very different depending on who we have and what kind of shooters we have and all of the above. I think there's so many different ways to play that you really have to tailor it to the type of players that you have on the court and the type of team that you have.
So when you say that, because I agree because things are always going to change based on personnel. So are there situations where you will be able to identify like, okay, based on who we have on the court, I know that we got to get into this right away. Is that change kind of like year to year based on the personnel that you have you kind of evolved or modified kind of what those quick hitters or what that quick offense is going to look like on a year to year basis?
Yeah, for sure. Like if my point guard is high level, I want the ball in his hands as much as possible. So a lot of our stuff is gonna, either start with the ball in his hands and end with it in his hands, or if my wing is great, now it's like my point guard's my entry guy, and then he's a screener or he's a spacer, whereas the wing is going to be the one making decisions and getting downhill and whatever my personnel dictates what I want out of
Right.
it. For the most part, though, I love playing where, my goal every night is to have six guys in double figures. Because if you can get six guys in double figures, you're hard as heck to beat. Um, so, that's my goal. That means that we're moving the ball. That means everybody's getting a chance, to make decisions. And, whether you're a play finisher or play starter, like if six guys get into double figures, that means the ball's been popping. So a lot of our sets are ball movement sets where it sees one side, two side, where there's a secondary pick and roll later in the clock, as opposed to just trying to score off the first one all the time. There's a fine line between getting the best player the ball when it matters and letting everybody touch it before the best player gets it. So it's, you work through that as a team throughout the year, and then you got to know what you can get to at the end of clocks, or when the going gets tough and the games get slower when you're in the playoffs, like what can you get to? What are you looking for? who's going to be good in this set versus who's going to be good in that set. Like it's something that you build out throughout the season for sure.
So with that, how much, as kind of a follow-up question to that, how much are you making those kind of decisions based on matchups? Is there a lot of because I'm not too well versed in your area of basketball and the way everything works, but is there a lot in the way of being able to scout and being able to look at film ahead, or are there ways that you can kind of prepare in such a way that you can kind of know and identify where those matchups are and where offense can come from?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like we're playing at elite level basketball. Like we won't go into a game without a scout now, probably until the rest of the season, until the end of the season. Like how in depth the scout is just depends on how much film you can find. But most games we're going to go in with an idea of A, what the other team runs, B, how we're going to guard them, C, how we're going to attack them, and D, what their personnel look like. So that's stuff that we do as a coaching staff prior to. We'll have a walkthrough before most games where we get that out to the kids. Um, but for the most part, we don't change much. We just want to emphasize certain things in certain games, but we have a way of playing, and we think that we can play our style better than you can play your style. So we focus a lot on what we do,
Yeah.
and that way, regardless of what depth our scout is, if we can focus on what we do no matter what, then I think we're good going into most games.
So with that, can you have like a conversation with a guy and say, "Hey, look, based on the scouting, like this is going to be an opportunity for you to really, take advantage of X, Y, and Z, or you need to be looking to, be aggressive in this situation." How does all the information that you and the scout absorb and take in, how does that kind of translate to what you're telling your guys to kind of be
Yeah,
like ready
I
for,
mean,
be ready to maybe be a little bit more aggressive or, selfish, so to say, than maybe in other situations?
for sure. Like, for instance, if the other team has a big plotting big that can't guard and pick and roll, like we'll scrap our offense and just go straight pick and roll every single time. If they have a perimeter player that can't guard anybody, we'll put that guy in the ball screen and we'll just hunt him in the ball screen every time. Because we have a few high level players that I'm not sure if they put their worst defender on him, I'm not sure they can ever get a stop, right? So like we will scrap our whole offense to attack mismatches. Oftentimes it's not going to just be ISO. It's going to be ball movement into a ball screen and an attack that way. We'll also put guys, on the block or on the elbows where they only have to take one bounce to score, where the defense doesn't have time to collapse. Those are our two main ways to attack, weak defenders. But for the most part, like we we want the ball to move, and I think the better way to attack a mismatch is to attack with the idea of making a play for somebody else, because the other team knows that guy that can't guard, right? So they're going to overhelp, and that's when the kickouts are available, and that's when our shooters start to get off and make those corner threes.
And that's something that you bring up that I think is really cool though, is like you mentioned about how you are, more concerned about executing the things that you need to execute, not necessarily worrying about, what the other team's going to do. So by working on a lot of different things and a lot of different actions, it's not as if you are needing to teach your guys anything, brand new. It's you've been working on all these different offensive concepts. It sounds like though in certain situations you may emphasize other, parts of offense more than others, depending on what the situation is. Your guys are kind of, seems like kind of ready for everything, but what they're going to be asked for in maybe a particular situation may kind of vary from game to game.
For sure. And we'll end up playing close to 50 games this year, which is a lot,
Yeah.
but it gives them a chance to really build out like this is how we do this is how we do that. And it becomes very easy for them because of the experience they gain during those games. And the senior level guys obviously need the exposure. So there's a lot of games to be able to play well and, get some film and be able to, coaches be able to see them, all that kind of stuff. Um, but it also does help as a team because you've been in a lot of situations and you faced a lot of adversity, and the way that you come back from that adversity becomes sort of second nature because it's not new. You're not doing things for the first time when it comes to March and you have to win a championship, like you're not going to see many scenarios that's going to be the first, like
Yeah.
that's super important for us because we got to know how to handle and how to, bounce back from any missteps.
And as you mentioned, right, I imagine with so many games that you have, that gives you a lot of time to really figure out a lot of different things about your team, about your play style, all the different. So like you said, by the time you get towards kind of the end per se, there's so much that you already know about your team. You kind of know them like the back of your hand, that there's really no surprises, I imagine, that are left about what your guys are able to do or what their strengths are or anything like that. Like you got it all pretty figured out how they are as a team.
For sure. And you know what? Like honestly, by the end of last year, I didn't even have to make the subs. Like the kids knew what the rotation was. I
Is that
didn't,
right?
very rarely did I have to look back at the bench and like if it was just a regular, rotation game, like the guys knew when they were going in. Like they would just look at me and I'd kind of, give them a glance and they'd be up at the table ready to go. Like everybody had their set times in and out. They knew when they were going to play. They knew what they had to give when they were on the court. Everybody bought in. And that's, something that really helped us win the championship because guys were fully bought into, what their role was on the team and what they could do to help us.
And so by that point, when you get to that championship point, at what went into kind of your decision making process of where your offense was going to come? You know your guys so well at that point. You've been playing for so long. The guys are, you know, subbing themselves in and out at that point. So when you get to that level where your knowledge of your team is just so high and their knowledge of each other is so high, what did you kind of talk to your guys about game planning and being ready for how to execute on offense? What went into that conversation?
I think one of the main things that comes throughout the season is guys figure out where they're good and where they're not good, right? So like the hierarchy of the team, they figure it out pretty quick. Um, they know that, one set is for this guy, the other set is for this guy. They know they're better in that spot as opposed to they still know the other spot, but it's like, no, no, this guy's better than me at that spot. Let him run this play. And then like, there's a lot of versatile guys on the court, so they're able to do different things but we'll have sets with multiple options and the guys will put themselves in the best spot for them. One might be a curl set with a shooter popping. Like the best curler is going to go to the curl spot and the best shooter is going to go to the shooter spot, right? Like it's just one of those things that they figure out where they do well in and they're like, no, no, let me run this play, you be this guy, and then the next time when it's like a secondary ball screen with spacing, now
Hmm.
it's like, okay, that's your job now because you're a slasher, you come off the ball screen on the second side. So a lot of times the guys figure it out themselves, with a little bit of guidance, obviously from the coaches, but like they know what they're good at and they know what they're not good at. They just need to figure out to be okay with that and understand that you can still have success without having to do everything all at once.
Something that I've, kind of been thinking about, kind of hearing about, how much your guys play and you talked about with practices and everything is I feel as if it's so important for, a lot of things, but on the offensive end too, for your guys to really have an understanding of each other's, skill set and where their strengths are, and knowing that, hey, if I get this guy in a certain spot, or if I can, get this guy in a screen, or if we can get this certain action going and it frees up this guy, like your guys' knowledge of each other, I imagine, has to be so high that they know like where they need to be to put each other in successful. They know where their teammates need to be. They know how the ball needs to move. There's probably just this certain level of knowledge that just comes from playing together so much that they know when the offense is looking good and where guys need to be in order for them to be successful.
Yeah, and we'll track a bunch of things that we can sort of look at game to game. Like we'll have offensive targets and we'll have defensive targets. Things that we want. There's a certain number of things that we want per game, and if we do those things, we know we had a good offensive game. If we do the defensive side, we know that we had a good defensive side. Um, those type of things really allow them to trust each other, and I can something that I can reference a lot. Like we're looking for corner threes. Like when the ball hits the corner, you got to shoot, or like when you drive, you should find the corner because those are the shots that we're looking for. So they know what we're tracking. They know, after the game, we'll go through the numbers and they know that they need to get the ball to those spots. So they trust each other to do it. And oftentimes we'll be able to, when we win, it's great. But sometimes you learn a lesson in the loss too, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you only got three corner threes today. We weren't passing the ball. So we were just pounding our head against the wall trying to score at the rim against bigs. Like hit the corner. The corner three is open. Hit the corner, right? Like it's just one of those things that you got to learn those lessons. And the more you play, the more you trust. And like you said, like they start to figure it out pretty quick.
And do you have, I know it's not maybe necessarily an exact science, but are there like certain metrics that you're looking to hit, or are there indicators on a stat sheet that you can look at where you can say, okay, if we do X, Y, and Z, we're in a really good chance of being successful. If we don't, or if we don't hit this metric, we're not. Is that something that you can kind of sort of already kind of predict before a game that you need to get to certain numbers on certain things, or is it a case by case situation?
Yeah, we have targets. So like right now on offense, we're looking for 10 corner threes a game. We're looking for 8 hit ahead passes where the ball crosses half in the air. We're looking for 20 plus free throws, less than 12 turnovers, and 40 paint touches for the
Mm,
game.
I like the
So,
paint touches a lot. Yeah.
we'll have we'll either do it after the fact through film, or we'll have one of the assistants on the bench tracking these things as it happens live. And obviously, it's not going to be like 100% certainty that these are the right numbers, but it just gives you an idea like what it is. Like a corner three is something that is easy to track because it's very apparent when you shoot them, right? It's almost always a kick out to the corner because you can't really dribble step back in the corner. There's no space, right? So like
Yeah.
those are pretty apparent. Hit ahead passes, you can tell when the ball is moving up the court quickly. Free throws is easy to track, obviously. Turnovers are easy to track, and the paint touches is just, being on top of it and just having that emphasis on touching the paint and either kicking it or scoring. Like that's where the ball has to get to in order for you to have a good offense.
Yeah. No, what I really like about that too is that, your stats, they don't lie at all, right? So you can look at whether it's from a win or a loss, and you could say like this is what we did, and this led to us being successful, or hey, like we said we wanted 50 paint touches, that's what we're going to stat. We only got 38, or we got 40, and so you know maybe this is one of the reasons why we weren't as successful. I think those conversations about stats and numbers are things that probably lead to productive conversations, and I'm sure you could elaborate on this, that your guys can take that information or kind of learn from that information and use the stats to understand like what went well, or maybe what they can improve on in a game.
For sure. And like just the act of communicating it to them and
Yeah.
knowing they have it on paper, they get to see it on their phone. It's like, oh,
Right.
coach is looking for that. Let me try to do that so that it shows in well on the film. Like this is what makes us successful. So here, let's look for the corner three. Let's look for that hit ahead pass up the wing. Because if they hit those metrics, they've given me their trust. And most times you hit those metrics, you're going to win, right? Like
Yeah.
those are basically creating the hierarchy of your offense by looking at the things that you track. So by tracking it, the kids know that it's important, so they know that they want to try to do that as much as possible.
No, no, that's great, Coach. I know that you kind of mentioned how obviously not everything in good on offense is coming from, one-on-one isolation type situations, and I completely agree with that. But of course, there may be situations where you have those isolation situations, or a guy is in a situation potentially where they're going up against a not so great defender, and they're able to, be in more of a one-on-one situation. So I was curious about when those situations happen, or just in general when you're training your guys how to maybe beat your guy off the dribble and get to the basket, or be able to, pull up and get a good shot. How do you kind of train your guys or explain to your guys how to kind of win that sort of one-on-one situation against a defender?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of keeping it simple. You don't need a 7 dribble combo. Try to keep it to 3 dribbles or less, and just like know what move you have, like what move you want to get to, and then know what your counter is when the defense takes that away. I think just doing that allows you to be a lot more decisive with the ball. And when you're decisive, you're doing the thing that you want, and the defense is reacting to you. So you're sort of dictating what the possession is, as opposed to kind of like dribbling it 7 times, beating the guy 3 times, but never really going by him. Um, and then you kind of get stuck and all your space is gone. So you end up shooting a shot that you didn't really want to get to at the end of it all. So just
Yeah.
being super decisive, being super simple, and trying to do it in 3 dribbles or less.
Is that something that you find is difficult for players? Is there a situation or situations that you've dealt with or trained with guys where there is like an over dribbling epidemic and you have to kind of train that out of them, or is that something that they're able to pick up on, not dribbling as much?
I think they're able to pick it up because if they do it, they usually stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
But also it comes from a lot of individual film in a game where it's like, look at the defense just pack the paint as soon as you start dribbling 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Like you can
right.
like literally see the defense locking into the elbows and the blocks and not giving you any space to attack, like and then you find a good one where it's 2 dribbles and you just get right by your guy, or you take 2 dribbles and shoot a hesitation pull up in front, like right in his face. Like you were decisive here. This is what it looks like. This is how balanced you were. Like using film to sort of reiterate your points is often a lot better than just kind of going off of the eye test, because the eye test is sort of a he said, she said thing. As opposed to the film, we say the eye and the sky don't lie. Like you can see it really clearly on whatever screen you're watching on.
Yeah, and to that point, because I completely agree, I find sometimes that not that necessarily. I think my players would disagree with me if I say something I'm in a practice situation, but I sometimes could tell like maybe they thought like, oh no, but I did X, Y, and Z, or my form looked good, or I got on good balance, and I was like, oh no, it didn't. But like if you have it on film, it's like, all right, we don't have to even have this sort of guessing game. Like we could just look at it and you'd be like, yeah, well, yeah, I was off balance, or I wasn't set, or I wasn't X, Y, and Z. And I think that having that film, like you said, that eye in the sky part really just makes those conversations go by a lot quicker. And I think you lead to a lot less like, oh, coach doesn't trust me, or, coach thinks this, but I think this sort of thing. Like film is, like you said, right? It's like the great equalizer, so to speak.
For sure.
I was curious, coach, a few more things here before we hit our concluding segment. Something I was curious about is there a way that you work on getting your guys to be better shooters? Is it something where they have to work on it in a game situation because that's where they're going to be shooting it in a game? So they got to work on, footwork, and they got to work on how to get their shots up within the context of an offense? Or is there things that can be done sort of in isolation that help get guys better in shooters? What kind of goes into, I know you're already working with guys that are pretty high level as it is, but what kind of goes into just making them that much more effective in-game shooters?
Yeah, individual reps, I think once they see the ball go through the net, they become a lot more confident. So like outside of practice time, where it's just them, and a rebounder and a passer or whatever, we have a lot of individual work being put in with the guys, with the assistants, with me in the gym, just getting shots.
Yeah.
So once they see it go in, now it's making it competitive and making it game speed where they have to shoot it, at a high level against the clock, or you got to make 6 of 10 or whatever it is that you're trying to rep. Like you do it with a competitive piece to it. So it puts a little bit more pressure on it. And then it just goes back to that whole like you have to shoot when you're open in a game, and just giving them that confidence to know that when they get the look to shoot it, they don't have to second guess whether they think it's a good shot or not. Like they just shoot the ball knowing that they've put in the work prior, which then gives them the ability to make that shot, before they actually shoot it. They make it in their head. That helps huge in a game, right? Like you have to be able to
Yeah.
visualize it. You have to be able to know that you've put in the work prior.
Yeah, you bring up a great point about how much of a mental aspect it is, right? How important confidence is and being shot ready and believing that you're going to make it. And, guys can put in all the work that they can in the gym or in a game situation, but to have the confidence to know that, hey, like you know that you can make this, or you know that when, you get the opportunity to shoot it, like you should feel like it's going to go in. And I at least I know for me it's something that I have to be aware of because I've seen my girls pass up shots, or or you can sometimes even see like when they shoot it's like, ooh, like I can just kind of tell there's either a little bit of hesitation or there's just something wasn't quite right there. And I think as coaches we kind of definitely owe it to our players, especially the ones that can shoot and are good shooters, to make sure that their confidence level is high, make sure that like they know they're expected to shoot it. And it sounds like, building your players up mentally is something that you work on and make sure that your guys know that you have trust in them.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think a lot of that comes from the ability to, connect with them individually,
Yeah.
have that rapport with them, be able to talk to them about it. let them know exactly what their role is and that you trust that they can make shots. And when they know that you trust that they can make shots, it becomes a little, lightens the load on them a little bit, because if they know that no matter make or miss, I'm still in the game, like that makes a huge difference. Whereas, some coaches, your playing time is directly correlated to whether you make or miss your first shot. That's a huge amount of pressure on that first shot.
Yeah.
And that becomes a time where it's like, how often are you going to make that first shot? Like, it's tough,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
a hard mental aspect of the game. That's like my playing time is fully correlated to whether this shot goes in or not.
And if they miss that first one, they're probably passing up on the next one, even if they're wide open, because they don't want to put themselves in position when they're 0-2. And then all of a sudden, like we just talked about transition, you might blow a whole transition opportunity into a turnover right out of that.
Absolutely.
Another one with that, coach, is it in the same context about, finishing at the rim, whether it's a post player, whether it's a guard, whether it's somebody finishing at the basket, is that something again that can be kind of drilled or trained or worked on? Or again, is that something that, just really comes into practice situations, training situations, and guys have to figure out either how to, get contact or be able to finish when they get to the bucket?
Yeah, I think training those things one on one, just not on air, makes a huge difference. Just having a hand up, a contest, a little bit of physicality prior, just not doing it on air, so one on O, that makes a huge difference, because now they have to feel the body, they have to maneuver around the contest. They gotta, elevate just that half an inch more to be able to get it over the shot blocker's hands. Like, those things come when you're doing it against competition. Obviously, there's a point where it's got to be one on zero, where you're just working on your touch and kind of, getting the feel for the ball and all that kind of things.
Right.
But training it against a live defender is huge, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's there's nothing quite like the real thing, especially if you're trying to go something at like full speed or things like that. And I think for a lot of players, it's one of those things, at least I know in my experience, where, I found that players will get, maybe a little bit frustrated, or, it will be a little bit difficult for them. But at least for me, I don't know about you, coach. I'll let you kind of elaborate on your experience, but at least I know for me at my level, like that ability to finish at the rim, or to be able to finish strong, or play through contact, or to be able to have a move that they can, go to at the rim is takes a lot of time. It really is something that takes a lot of experience. It takes a lot of reps. It takes, physicality and strength. And I think it's something that as coaches, you shouldn't give up on if your players are kind of struggling with it, because I think it's something that doesn't necessarily come easily, and it can only come with a lot of reps and a lot of practice. At least I know that that's how it's been for me.
For sure. And I think, certain guys got it. Like, they got that it factor where they know how to get their shot off, where they have just that extra long step, or they got the half a second where they hold it for just a half a second longer, so they're
Right.
able to, get it around the shot blocker. Where those reps are different. Like, that's instinct. But you need to have a fundamental base where you know that you can do it, against a 6'7" guy. When the 7-footer comes in, now it becomes okay. Now, what do I need to do? You need to develop a little bit more contact. You need, give solutions to them, as opposed to just saying, don't shoot it because you're going to get blocked. Like, provide a few solutions, do it in practice with a contest stick or whatever you got in your gym, where they're going to be put at a disadvantage. Let them rep that a little bit. Let them feel that high hand. Let them feel a little bit more physicality sometimes, and foul them sometimes, because, like, you're going to have to be able to play through contact, right? Like, it's one of those things where, when you're not feeling it for the first time, when you're not doing it for the first time, you feel just that half a little bit more comfortable, being able to get your shot off, in a crowd.
Yeah, and I really love what you mentioned about that part, and that's something that has really been a point of emphasis for me over the last few years. About, you even talked about like whether it's playing or training, about, having your guys or girls, or whatever the case may be, not be afraid to, get a little bit physical or get a little bit aggressive during, game situations or practice situations, because that's where your players get used to it. And I know that when I first started, I had players who, were a little bit hesitant, or maybe, let things up a little too easily, or gave up baskets a little bit too easily because they didn't want to be physical. And I feel like I personally maybe, wasn't as, hard on that or emphasize that that wasn't acceptable enough, but I noticed a big change when I really, emphasized that, like, hey, we gotta get after each other a little bit in practice. You mentioned, coach, about, how competitive you want your practices to be. And I think, allowing and within reason, obviously, but allowing that physicality is really important to get your guys and or girls like ready for what's going to be happening in a game situation, making it game like.
For sure. And there's points of the practice where we do non-competitive stuff just so we can get our reps in. And
Yeah.
then, towards the end, I typically get competitive and we, put them in situations where it becomes, win, we want to develop that winning mentality. We want to know that winning is the ultimate goal. And the losers don't want to lose because they don't want to have that feeling of losing.
Yeah.
I think that really motivates people to do the right thing and play the right way.
Awesome. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple of questions that I ask every guest. So I'll go ahead and start with this first one, which is thinking back on your coaching career, what is a specific moment from your coaching career that you think by sharing our listeners would be able to learn from?
Yeah, I had a completely different philosophy before I started coaching pro basketball in 2021. Like my whole defensive philosophy, my whole offensive philosophy was completely different. And then I worked with a coach, and he changed everything that I thought about basketball. I didn't think at the moment, I didn't think it would be, but the more I did it, it was just like, oh man, like I really like this a lot better. So I think just not being set in your ways and being open to different perspectives and thinking about the game in different ways and never stop learning. I think those are the main takeaways for me. Um, Maybe next year I change my philosophy again. Like
Yeah.
you never really know what you like the best because you don't know what you don't know. So, just keep trying to learn, keep trying to figure out what works for you, what looks good on paper, what looks good in practice, and then try to implement that in the game as much as possible.
So are you, excuse me, are you, coach, somebody who's always kind of scouring like what's going on whether it's like Twitter, social media, talking to coaches, clinics? Are you always looking to like kind of pick up on things and maybe jot things down, whether you're going to use them right away or later, sort of thing?
Yeah, I watch a lot of basketball. I watch a lot of
Yeah.
film, different levels, NBA, NCAA, EuroLeague, high school. I'll take if I see something I really like, I either screen record it, grab the clip, whatever, like just, put it in the Rolodex for later.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like complete utter like big picture philosophy stuff, I think I'm pretty confident in what I like right now, but you never know. Like there might be something that comes along that I've never seen before where it's like, oh, I actually like that a lot better. Like, you got to be okay knowing that you don't know everything. And I think once you develop that, now you become, a lifelong learner and you're definitely less stubborn as a coach. You never really get stuck in your ways and you're always adapting and you're adapting to the times and that'll allow you to persist for a lot longer than, getting stuck in the way that they played in 2008 or the way that basketball was in 2018. Like the game changes so much year to year that you probably got to keep adapting to keep winning.
Yeah, and I love to, just as like an addition to that, I love when there's something that like you screen grab or something that you save and you have it like for a few years and then all of a sudden you see something like, wait a minute, I think I remember something about this, or I think I could use something like that, and you like go back to it like, oh, this would be perfect, and it was something that you saved years ago, but it worked for maybe this one particular group you have or this one particular situation. I love when those like little things come up and it's like, all right, I knew I saved this for a reason, sort of thing.
For sure. Yeah. And I think just having like there's times where, I'll be sitting either in an airport or on a bus or something. Like there's a lot of time where I have a downtime where I'll just go through my Twitter likes. And it's like
Yeah.
I've got stuff saved 3 or 4 years ago that's like, oh, I remember that. Like put that down in my notes for tomorrow. Like it's some,
Yeah.
it just things click sometimes. So, you just gotta keep learning, keep adapting and, keep being the best version of yourself.
Love it. Coach, to wrap up, I give every guest kind of what I call this 60-second soapbox, but you're welcome to go over 60 seconds. I'm not going to time you, but I love to use it kind of as a final platform for you to kind of get out any sort of final thought, final message, closing idea, something that you want to leave the listeners with. You could take it anywhere that you want, basketball wise, coaching, or otherwise. So it is your soapbox after all. So, Coach, I'm just going to go ahead, give you the floor, and let you take it from here.
For sure. I think just offensively, the more you instill confidence in people, the more likely they are to respond um, to you as a coach and respond to their teammates. Um, we really talk about when one person eats, everybody eats. Like that's sort of a thing that we say a lot. When you win, it really reinforces the whole team thing. So if there's one point you take from this whole offensive talk, it's like, play offense as five people. Don't just focus on your best guy or your best
Mm.
girl. Like focus on the team aspect of it, because the more people are bought in, the more they feel like they're a part of it, the harder they'll go and the better they'll play.
Oh, that's awesome, and I love that too. Team game after all, making sure that all your guys are ready to contribute. That's awesome, Coach. I really appreciate you coming on here, talking about your team, talking about offense, talking about coaching, practice philosophy, all of that. I love getting to pick your brain, especially with just how much coaching that you've had and the level of guys that you're working with. So definitely got some ideas and some things I'll be thinking about personally for me, coaching wise. So I appreciate it. I know you got such a busy schedule, a lot of travel coming up ahead of you. So I appreciate that we're able to have that conversation, Coach. Best of luck going forward, and hope it's another great, successful year and some more hardwares coming your way.
Thank you. Really happy to be out here. Really happy to talk with you. And keep doing your thing. You're doing a hell of a job with the podcast.
Appreciate it, Coach, and appreciate all of you listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.